Hi, I thought I'd do a really quick follow-up video, sort of a final testing video of our PTX1201 Music Center. If you saw in the first overview video, this is not a model that we get into the shop hardly ever at all, so I thought I would do a quick follow-up video. It turns out that the rebuild was successful. If you watched the first video, you saw when I turned it on, it had this ginormous hum on the system all the time. This is actually powered up now, and it's nice and quiet, just like it's supposed to be. It turned out that rebuilding the PTX1201 was almost exactly the same amount of work as doing an IM4006. The minor differences on some of the circuit boards and the missing intercom control board didn't really affect the amount of work that was being done on it. This had all of the usual problems that 4006s have. It had a failed power supply. I rebuilt all of the boards in the set, including the little audio interface board that ties it into the PTX1200 telephone unit. The cassette player needed some repair. It had a disintegrated drive belts which had wrapped around the cassette motor and burnt it out, so the motor was replaced and the other parts were cleaned to get all the black tarry goo out. We do have a new playlist that talks about cassette player assembly, so you can see some of the more detailed information about that in that playlist. So kind of an unusual final testing video because really all we're doing is testing a radio. There's no intercom. Usually if this was a 4006, it would be hooked up to 3 or 4 remote speakers, a door speaker. We'd be testing it for clarity and functionality and all that has to do with the intercom. In this case, we're just listening to the radio. So there's one thing I noticed is a little different about the way this operates in a 4006. So we can go ahead and turn the radio on. We have FM, and we have our preset stations. We can switch to AM. The crackly noise is just reception on the low part of the AM band here at the shop. Phono and tape. One of the things that's interesting about this is on an IM4006, the cassette player has dominance over the radio or music input all the time. Actually, if you look here and on a 4006, it says radio on and off. And if you want to listen to AM or FM, see, it won't light up like it's supposed to. You have to turn the radio on, then you can choose AM or FM, turn radio off. On a 4006, if you have the radio on and you press play on the cassette player, it will override the radio. However, even if you have the radio in the off position, if you press play, the cassette player still overrides the system and will play through. The PTX1201 is not like this. With the radio off, if I press play, I don't hear anything at all. You have to turn the input on, but even then you don't hear it. So what you really have to do is turn the radio power on, and it plays through both on phono and tape. And then it overrides the radio. So it was always a little odd on the 4006 as it was, and in this case it's even a little bit odder. I assume that they didn't want to redesign all of the control circuitry that had to do with the radio and the cassette player, so they sort of modified it and came up with a reasonable way of doing it without incurring a lot of additional costs. Anyway, the radio plays fine, the cassette plays fine. After I put the new motor in it and replaced the parts that were covered with the black tarry goo from the belts, I set the motor speed and realigned the head, and you can see that in the cassette player playlist video about this. Other than that, that's pretty much it. There isn't really a lot to test, so it was a fairly straightforward repair to do. I hope you found this interesting and helpful. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up on YouTube. If you would subscribe to our YouTube channel, we would appreciate it. That's all for today. See you on the next video.